Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complaint, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
You said that you actually drive that very same area that Chip was talking about there in Georgia, huh?
I'm an Atlanta native, which there are very few of us around here. Chip sounds like he is one. Definitely has been here in the area a long time, but I'm familiar, with Swanee, Norcross, Lawrenceville area that he was talking about, and it was pretty wild back then. Atlanta has exploded over my lifetime of 46 years or so that I've been here, with the Olympics and a lot of companies relocating to the south. Atlanta has the corporate headquarters for quite a few major industries. You
could see where, as far as the time frame that he was talking about, the possibility of things as big as what he was speaking of, Bigfoot, and that possible dog man being buried around there could actually happen.
Right, like I said, I mean, in just my lifetime, since the early 70s till now, up until the mid 80s is when the explosion really took off. And yeah, it was just farm country, and there were some neighborhoods, and Atlanta was just starting to grow with the expansion of the airport. Yeah, it was pretty much very much a small little backwards southern town until that growth in the 80s took place.
When you, in your message to me, you did say, and this is so funny because, and Chip actually didn't realize I was going to leave that part in with the whole buried coins and all of that, but I like that story, so I left it in. I thought it was funny. You said you actually worked there for some time doing some video work or something, and then when Chip mentioned it, you're like, yep, been standing right above what he's talking about.
Yeah, the arena in Gwinnett is now on this property that he was talking about. It's the home of our minor league hockey team, the Atlanta Gladiators, and they are an affiliate for the Boston Bruins, who are still in the NHL playoffs. Mm-hmm. But it's also an arena where I think Lady Gaga has performed, Coldplay, all the rock stars will play down in Atlanta at the arena in Atlanta, and they'll also play at this arena up in Gwinnett as well, because there's just a whole lot of people up here in the suburbs that don't want to drive down to the city to see a concert. So yeah, right there is that is quite a legend, and I don't even think anybody there, of course, would have any idea. I mean, Chip's probably never told that story to anybody.
Right.
Here's the thing I was thinking about. It must have been buried pretty well or deep, because they would have had to grade it for a lot of the parking lot. It had to move all that land around. But again, if it was something how did he say he buried it in a box?
Yes. Like maybe even
jar?
Yeah, I don't know if it was in glass or if it was like a big Rubbermaid container type of a thing.
Yeah, it could still be pushed down and under the ground somewhere. I'm sure it is. If they didn't dig it up, then that money's still there.
Right. That's so funny. I love that story. Yeah, I was like, I was at first I was like, oh no, maybe he didn't want me to air it, but he just said, I told it as an aside, and I didn't realize you were going to leave it in. He was like, that was pretty cool that you did. I was like, I thought that story was hilarious. All right, so you also mentioned, and here's why we're really on here chatting, a cryptid cat story. And I did just a cursory search around for, what's the normal wildlife there in Georgia? And it does say that the biggest cat that you guys are supposed to have is the bobcat, and which is quite normal for a lot of places. But you are saying that maybe there are some other bigger kitties around there.
I can tell you. That's why I'm here, to tell you the story of what I saw. And it's cryptid. I think I would use that definition. It's not in our normal taxonomy.
Right.
For what we have here in the state of Georgia. It was only a couple of years ago. I've hunted and fished my whole life here. And you very rarely see, I've only seen a bobcat once. And even then that was on a country road while I was driving. So the cats that we do have are very elusive and, just probably seen by a lot more people than I've seen, but, that is our largest cat, and hence the name. It does not have a tail. And so that makes them very distinguishable, a cat of that size not having a tail of anything more than a little nub off the back.
Right.
So the cat that I saw had a tail as long as its body length was, if that makes any sense. So, from its nose to its butt was about, whatever that distance was, and then a tail about that same length, off the back. So it was very, very noticeable that it had a big, thick, cat-like tail. So he may, again, it's cryptid, and that's how I would define the cat. If you look in Cats of the Americas, then it's not out of the question. It could be something from Central or South America, as we discuss further. I'll give you ultimately what I think it was, but it was quite a, mystery cat. And there was a growing legend of these sightings around that county, Southwest Georgia. This cat that, as opposed to being nocturnal, operated diurnal. It was during the day. During the heat of the day is when this cat would tend to operate and go on its hunting. And people were losing chickens and, small livestock throughout the area. So the only way I know about this, not being from living in Southwest Georgia, was tales that my uncle had told me, at the feed store. People would just stand around talking, and it'd come up, and there was this discussion of this large black cat. The wreck just happened right behind me.
Just now?
Holy cow. Just now. Oh, man.
Oh. Do you need to go to call somebody, or are they?
The traffic, there's a lot of people around already.
Okay.
I just heard, anyway.
I think I heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was right, those tires screeching, and then a loud crash right behind me.
Holy
so,
crap.
There was a couple cars, but I saw it anyway. Oh, that's life in Atlanta.
Yeah, I've driven through Atlanta once in my life, and it is astonishing, the traffic. It reminds me a lot of Seattle, but maybe a little bit more chaotic in a way somehow. I don't know why. Maybe they have more lanes on the freeway than Seattle did, but it was crazy.
That's all they do here, because we're not bound by any major bodies of water.
Right.
So we continue to widen roads.
Add lanes.
Like other major cities.
Yeah. May as well.
Other major, Boston, New York, DC, they have to use trains. They just cannot keep widening roads like we do here. So
right.
Anyway.
Yikes. Yeah, I thought I heard something kind of odd, so that's okay. So your uncle.
They were taught. My uncle, and then so it wasn't like this is a one-off story. Like there were people seeing this cat. In fact, my uncle had seen a large cat with a friend of his. They were out walking his pasture one day, looking at some quarter horses. I think that he was going to work on training, and they noticed the cat again during broad daylight, out making its moves. And
when was
his
that?
His comment to me was, "I'm sorry."
When was that? Was that recently, or is this years back?
No, this was back during when all of these sightings took place, which I have it as best as I can remember. This took place around 2012, 2013.
Okay.
About 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and so my uncle had seen this cat himself and had figured that's what had been killing his chickens.
Mm.
So he had been losing a lot of chickens. He and my aunt would just raise chickens to have to sell the eggs off. It's just something easy to do because they have the land to do it.
Right.
It's just a little side something that they do. But they were losing a lot of chickens. So one time I tend to visit them periodically, and when I'm there with my family, we'll go down and visit and stay. He has pecan trees, and he has lots of squirrels in these pecan trees. So he likes me to kill the squirrels when I'm down there because one squirrel will destroy up to 300 pounds of pecans a year.
Wow.
So, yeah, they eat them when they're green, before, when we get them. And
right.
So when they're more vulnerable, squirrels are real hard on the pecan crop. So I don't mind taking care of the squirrels when I can.
I didn't realize one squirrel would annihilate that much crop.
Yeah, and I don't know how many pounds of normal, it's like 300 pounds of pecan, something like a lot of pounds, but for one tree, I don't know how many.
Right.
I don't know how devastating that is, other than it wasn't like you had to kill a whole lot to, it was an awful squirrel massacre just to have a good pecan crop. I mean, we'd shoot a few here and there. It was like,
Jeremy and the Squirrel Massacre of 2012. Yes, I've heard about that. Very infamous.
I mean, I don't know. Someone from PETA may be listening. I don't know.
We'll keep you
anyway.
as anonymous as we need to keep you safe.
Right.
Yeah, no last names, no exact locations, because
the squirrels know who I am. Believe me, they know when I show up.
They go running.
Here we are. I guess I should just start from the very beginning of that morning. Just on the day of what we'll call the incident, the day I saw this cat.
Mm-hmm.
Was down there, the family, everybody was still asleep. I got gotten up early in the morning, fixed some coffee, and slipped on these hot this time of year, down in South Georgia. So I had some khaki shorts on, some big rubber muck boots, and a t-shirt. Just really, your normal squirrel killing clothes.
Yeah, sure. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm not wearing any camo or anything like that. I'm just going to take the shotgun
No face paint?
Have my coffee.
Come on. Yeah. You're not that committed, right? No, you don't need the face paint and the camo.
No face paint. No, I'm just going to go out and enjoy the coffee. And if a squirrel comes by, well, then it's on. Then it's time for war.
Yeah.
Just having the coffee. Been there all, for morning. This went on for probably about, I don't know, just an hour or so, just kind of moving from tree to tree, moving the chair, just kind of sitting there in the shade, and then, just enjoying the quiet morning. It's about the time when the coffee had done its thing and nature had called. So I swung the shotgun over my shoulder and walked to behind what was called the old hog barn, which is over what used to be called the Hog Lagoon, kind of where a long time ago there used to be hogs kept on this property, and since my uncle owned the farm, he never had hogs. But that's kind of the way, the natural flow of, I guess, having farming hogs, you need a place for their waste runoff to go. So it's called the Hog Lagoon. But right now, it's just kind of a bowl-shaped indention into the pasture, where I was sitting was kind of a high point of the pasture and looking down towards that bottom of the lagoon. Off to my left, running 90 degrees across that ridge of the pasture was the old hog barn. So I had shotgun ready to go, for any squirrels coming along. It was loaded and forbear, and I was, ready for a squirrel, but I had to sling the shotgun over my shoulder to take a leak right there. It was right at that moment of my vulnerability that I peered to my left and looked to see this large cat come bounding out of the shadows of the hog barn out into the hog lagoon right in front of me. And if you've ever been around a pet in North America for any amount of time, you kind of get an idea just what shape and size they naturally should be.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like, just even if you didn't own a house cat, you kind of know about what the shape of a house cat would be.
Right.
You know, it's not like we all grew up and not seeing one. I say all that to say that what I saw completely jarred me in its size. It was, if I were to guess, it was probably from its rump to the tip of its nose was at least 3 feet. Just in, you know, again, I could be off. I could be underestimating or overestimating by a little, but that's roughly what I'd say. Maybe 4 feet, but it definitely was bigger than any cat I'd ever seen. And at this time, I had not actually seen a bobcat in the wild, so I saw the bobcat, you know, a year or so later after seeing this cat.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the size of the animal was one thing, but then it was this large tail that it had that made it stand out even more. It was as thick as like a fire hose. You know, just this rounded, thick tail, just as long as the cat itself. And the cat was dark. Cat, you know, but not jet black. You could tell it had, like faint grays and moltings, and just not a calico look, not
right.
a dual monochromatic or dual chromatic look. It just had kind of a wild gray sheen, like a shine to it. But it wasn't just jet black. It was just kind of almost a dark bronze color. It hopped right out. And again, let's go back to the position I'm in. I'm not in any position to quickly even put a weapon on it if I had even wanted to shoot it.
Right.
I was there to get the squirrels, and in hindsight, it was like the creature we believe that had been killing my uncle's chickens there appeared in rear, you know, and presented itself for me to take care of. But again, I was in no position to do anything.
No, you were not.
I basically just watched it, and as it had bounded out, it turned its head and looked right at me. Again, we're talking a distance of probably about 30 yards to where I was. I could see its head above some of the tall grass. It didn't just have a full body, head to toe look at it when it was still. And I kind of made a bleat sound as you would in the woods. For those people who've listened and have hunted, or watched hunting videos, sometimes they'll hear hunters bleat at a deer to get them to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of make a sound like they would make, just kind of stops game in their tracks to make a bleat. So I just bleated at it to see if I could get it to stop, because it had started to bound away. Just all I did, just bleating at this cat, and it would look at me, and finally it had enough of that silliness, and it, you know, he or she, it gracefully just bounded away from me, like in a kind of an S, as it, you know, just kind of loped away. It was in no hurry. It was not running for its life. It just was kind of getting out of the sun, getting to some shade, to some cover. I couldn't keep up with it, of course. I was trying to follow it as best I could, because when I saw it and it started kind of jogging away, I started moving towards it. And that's really all, you know, the whole story is to that encounter, physically seeing this creature. You know, it was long before I lost it completely. It just as quickly as it appeared, it just disappeared.
Right.
So I went in and I told my uncle, I said, well, I saw the biggest cat I've ever seen. It wasn't until then, that's when he had actually told me the story of the time he saw the cat. It was like, yeah, well, you know, Doug and I were out and we saw a really big cat, because we know how big the cat is because of which row of barbed wire it crawled under on its way out of the pasture.
Right.
So, you know, it didn't jump through it. It like walked through like the middle and stepped over, and didn't have to, like they would just, crawl under the lowest or kind of hop through the middle.
Right.
He says this thing walked. It never hopped, just kind of kept walking and just picked its feet up and walked through like the middle row of barbed wire.
Yep. That's a big one. So then what was the thought then with that cat then? Is it, at that point, are you guys like, well, chickens are being killed and other people's animals are being killed? And since also it's not really supposed to exist in Georgia, are you allowed to shoot such a thing? Or would there be a need or a want to do that?
Okay. So this put me on a hunt for like cats of the Americas. So that I wanted, because again, we don't have cats in the size with tails that long in this state. There's, and I finally came down to these two possibilities. It could have been an exotic that someone had let go.
Mm-hmm.
It could, again, it wasn't like circus cat size. It wasn't panther, big cat size. It was a medium-sized cat. That's the cat full grown. It was, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like it's like something, like an exotic big cat that people would have that got loose. Maybe it was something else. But the other thing it could have been, which I'm kind of more leaning to, it's a cat from Central and South America called the jaguarundi, the otter cat. And as I best looked at any pictures of cats in North America, it most matched the cat that I saw that day in South Georgia.
I am looking it up as we speak.
Now, not to be confused with jaguar undies, which are do you get the joke?
Okay, all right, yeah, I've got it. Yeah, no.
That's a ball. That's a bad joke.
No, it's great. Sorry, I was like in the middle of reading this thing. I was like, oh, jaguarundi. Okay, yeah, not to be confused with. Because I've actually never heard of this cat, so I'm looking at the images of it now. And actually, these pictures do show one that looks a little bit more on the auburn side, and the other one here looks a little bit more gray, and then there's a darker one. So they're all different colors from the looks of it. It almost looks like a big ferret or something. It's got a very short nose.
Very, very small face.
Yeah.
For a cat that size, yeah.
That does compare with what you saw?
It does, and reading about it, you'll learn that they are a diurnal cat. That they operate during the heat of the day.
Wow, which is very strange.
Well, like deer or crepuscular, they move most at dusk and dawn.
Right.
You have owls and mice, which are nocturnal. They operate in the middle of the night. This cat, it gets going during the middle of the day, so it's kind of like a teenage boy. It's like not awake
sleep
and,
in, and then they get up. Yeah, they take care of their business. Well, I mean, that does make sense, because when you think of a panther, something like that, their night vision is supposed to be incredible, and they do all of their work at night. So maybe this poor guy was not blessed with night vision, so he doesn't have that option.
It has to be something along those lines too.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think animals tend to obviously exert their dominant traits, and it's what makes them their survivability.
That is very cool.
Survivability operates during the day, I guess. And looking about it, there are some, I do think the range at the time has said they've had sightings all throughout the Gulf region and over the course of history, but I think they've been long since out of Florida and Georgia, or at least Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. There may still be some in Florida, and I do think there may be a few in South Texas. But the range, they say, that they used to be throughout the entire Gulf region, which, even though the state of Georgia doesn't touch the Gulf, the southwest Georgia is very close. Well, of course, it sits on top of the panhandle of Florida, which is the Gulf Coast. Right. So it would be well within their range if there was a population of jaguarundis.
Not to be confused with the jaguarundis. Oh, no!
They sell jaguarundis in Vegas.
Yeah. I've never heard of this guy, and it's just really cool because for you to confirm that, yeah, its face looked like that. And I will post a picture of the jaguarundi in the show notes so everybody can see it. But it looks a lot different than what a panther or some other quote-unquote big cat that you would think of. He's got a very stunted little face. It doesn't look nearly as terrifying as the big boys. But the tail is exactly what you mentioned. It's just as long as its body, and it's extremely thick, like massive, actually.
Yeah. I as best as I can remember, and again, I'm no field expert on, identifying every single animal I ever see, but having hunted and fished in the state and the Southeast my whole life, I'm fairly familiar with some of the wild animals you see out there, and so I scratch my head, and until it happened to me, I always find stories of what people see in the woods,
mm-hmm.
whether it's Bigfoot or whatever it is that they see. I kind of, I'm entertained by it. I'm intrigued by it. I don't, I find it to be just very amusing, but I don't find them, I don't tend to be dismissive or judgmental against them. I just can't relate. Do you see what I'm saying? I never could relate to, hey, but I want to emphasize and say, I think there has to be something to this, because there's a whole lot of people seeing a lot of something.
Yeah.
Whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, Slender Man, what people will see things and are seeing things and have seen things. For me, this cat was kind of one of those things like, oh, now I've seen something that I really couldn't go into a field book and show you, okay, in Georgia, what this is.
Right.
Now I've seen something outside of our taxonomy, and it was just that easy and that unexpected. So it makes me a whole lot more patient and understanding of people who have seen things, and then want to tell their story.
Yeah, I would think that would give you kind of more hope that, yeah, maybe there is even bigger things out there that are able to hide. And let's face it, places like Georgia and Florida that have lots of food, cover, and water is a great place for any of these creatures to live.
Oh, I mean, how long did it take them to find the Unabomber in North Carolina?
Right.
I mean, that guy was a human. I mean, he was,
Yeah, not built for it.
You can't.
Yeah.
Well, right, but he knew how to hide. I mean, there's the thing, and to that point, I don't think this is going to be the greatest cryptid discussion you've ever had with any of your callers, because I'm not telling people any sensational stories of like you've had on these the podcast before. But hopefully, what it is it just a continual appreciation for people to get out into nature and just to see things.
Yeah.
And appreciate it,
Yes.
and it's there to be explored, not to be feared. I don't think, I think that it's wild, mysterious, and beautiful, and and so the more time you spend out, the more things that you'll notice. I just find that to be the case. The more time I'm in the woods or on the water, your senses become more in tune to that, outside of this world of staring at your screen on your phone, or sitting in traffic, or watching television.
Or having an accident happen right behind you while you're driving. Recording
right. They might have been on their senses. They needed their senses more than saying they might have been looking at their cell phone.
I must see at least 25 people, a day, just over the course of a day, wherever I might be driving, that are just straight up looking down at their screens. They're not even trying to hold it up to at least look at the road and their screen. They're just down in their laps. I'm like, are you out of your damn mind?
Well, it's illegal here. You can't
here
even
too.
hold the phone
they don't care.
in your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that they don't care here either, but I hate to judge that wreck. I don't know. I hope everybody's okay.
Right. No. Yeah. I mean, it was loud enough. I even heard it. My God. I hope. Yeah. Hopefully they're okay. So
I just hope. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say for people is that I think that there may be things like this all around us.
Mm-hmm.
Species that we might think are faltering or endangered or even extinct. We're discovering them again. Thankfully, there's in everybody's yard or wherever they may live, there's all kinds of nature going on right around you. You know, I like to, and I just try to show that to my kids doing what we do. You know, it's always point out, you see a hawk, or you just see nature all around you. And
so, does your uncle still have that property?
He does, and the chickens are fine now. He, again, that was like as best I can figure 6 or 7 years ago, and it wasn't long after the hog barn incident that even the sightings started to disappear. I don't know, maybe I just scared the thing to death and it went back to South America, or maybe got hit by a car. But a lot of the sightings, they just tapered off, and it could have been just migrating, possibly. I don't know, moving to more food.
He had heard about you. He's like, that's Jeremy, the squirrel massacre. I have to go. Yeah, it's time to go home. I'm not screwing with him.
I'm sure that's it.
Yeah, he heard about you. Okay, so I have to ask you, because you're somebody that has seen a cryptid. That was a cryptid, because they're not supposed to exist in Georgia, of all places. So did the thought of taking a picture of this thing, now, I considering what you were doing, that's a whole nother level of it. I'm just talking about your mindset. Did taking a picture of this thing ever even cross your mind?
It would have, absolutely. I mean, it's just one thing I love to do, and we haven't even talked about this, is I'm a photographer, professionally, or just, and it's just as a hobby. So I would love to have had my camera on me, because it would have been a whole lot more effective and faster use than the shotgun on the sling over my shoulder.
Right.
I would love to have grabbed a picture of it. Yeah.
All right. So
yeah,
you've got the cryptid cat that you've seen. So especially considering the fact that you know exactly where Chip's experiences were with all the Bigfoot, and then the possible Dogman being buried, or would you want to see either one of those kinds of creatures? Would you like to graduate from the cryptid cat to a massive Bigfoot or an angry Dogman?
I will tell you this. Feel free to use this story or not. This is one of my stories. One of two stories that happened to me out west in your neck of the woods. I was with some buddies, and we were in Bryce Canyon, Utah. Are you familiar with Bryce?
I am area? Because I grew up going out to Duck Creek, Utah. That's where I saw those shadow people, and we would go to Bryce and Zion all the time.
Well, I don't think I'm up to speed with the whole shadow people. Your story on that, and maybe we can talk later about that. But I can see how that would happen, especially in a place like Zion. Have you been through the Narrows?
Oh yes.
So that on the same trip, let me backtrack before we get to Bryce. We had done the Virgin River Narrows from the top down.
Mm-hmm.
So that 16-mile 2-day hike, which now that it's closed because the ranch doesn't give access to the park anymore for top-down hikers.
Mm.
Anyway,
because people have died or fallen, or what's the problem?
No, I truly just think it's maybe use of land as far as the parking.
Gotcha.
And, but you have so many backcountry passes that are allowed for hikers and campers to go through, because I think there's, on that 16-mile hike, there's one little patch in the Slot Canyon where you have enough real estate to have campsites.
Right.
That are, high enough and off the river enough that you can have campsites. So I think there might be a dozen campsites total along that. Anyway, so, and I don't know if you know a little bit of the lore from Zion, but if I understood it correctly, the Native Americans didn't go back into the canyon because they felt like it was inhabited.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard that story?
I think just in passing. I know there's a lot of superstitions attached to places like that.
Yeah, it felt very unworldly, though. I wouldn't say that I was ever fearful in the canyon of any kind of presence like that.
Right.
The only thing I was concerned about was some flash flood 50 miles away that would end up,
mm-hmm.
But again, that was rather it wasn't a super concern. It wasn't. You guys have floods, those kind of flash floods out west that we don't understand about here in the east.
Right.
Like how they happen and how you guys have to have your water management so differently than we do.
Right.
So we get floods and we get water, and it just seems to come up from the rivers rather than across hard pan ground.
Yeah.
Down into the canyons like there. So, but I didn't know if you knew anything about the kind of the Indians, or the Native Americans not going back up in there.
Yeah, just in passing. I've never really. I should just do a whole show on something like that. I don't really know of anyone in particular that can speak to it, but yeah, I have heard that in passing.
And I heard that it could have been that way, especially with Bryce and the hoodoos, because those very much do look like teeth turned to stone. I think for a primitive people to see that would be their understanding of it. But when we were at Bryce, we were sitting around after a night of hiking and had finished dinner. There was, I think, 5 of us, and we're all grown men, but we not acting like men.
Right. You look like grown men. Yeah.
We look like grown men, and then that's when it was like late into the evening, and we didn't carry any liquid refreshment in with us because you try to carry as light, you carry a lot of weight when you're hiking. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing we didn't bring with us, and so we were all well within our faculties when someone heard a sound, and in an instant, the next thing you know, it looked like one of those Three Stooges movies where we're all behind one pine tree and all of our heads are looking around wondering how we all ended up here, because it was a total fight or flight herd mentality.
And you guys and you all reacted the same way. What was the sound?
That's what I'm saying. We did not act like grown adults. We acted like scared children.
Well, what was it? What was the sound?
Oh, you have these things out there called mule deer, and they were coming down to the spring that we were surrounded. We had set our camp beside. Right. They didn't care about us. They were That's about as scared as I've ever been out west.
It was mule deer.
It was mule deer.
That's amazing.
In the middle of the night. I think, if you've ever heard squirrels in the woods, that squirrels sound like, can sound like grown cows walking around on a quiet day. So
absolutely. Your mind just goes wild. Of course, a mule deer is a hell of a lot bigger than a squirrel, so that makes a lot bigger noise. You guys were all behind a tree?
All behind a tree. And one of us stayed. One brave one of us stayed. I never heard anything. I just totally followed the crowd.
Well, yeah, if the rest of the grown men are running, I would be running too. I'd be like, well, you're not leaving me behind.
Yeah, the same group of guys. We were out there near an Indian reservation in like the northwest corner tip of the state, camping out near this Indian reservation in the rainforest. We had gone to a place called Shy Beach. Mm-hmm. I don't know how familiar you are with that area. I'd been put in my own tent because I snored, so I was like put out from.
You're banished. Yeah.
I was relegated to
whatever. You saw a few too many logs at night, huh?
They weren't going to have any of it. So
you're not interrupting their sleep.
No, we've been hiking. We're tired. Just right there in the heart of Bigfoot country. As a boy growing up, always watching every show on Bigfoot, like any boy in the 70s did. Remembering In Search of, Leonard Nimoy, Patterson Gimlin film, all of that. Here I am, right here in the middle of the rainforest of the Pacific Northwest. And I'm in the middle of the night hearing something scratching on my tent. And I did not even care. I was so tired that I just slept through it. I think it could have been a raccoon. It could have been a bear thinking I was doing some kind of mating call.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what it was. Yeah. You sent out the Match.com, the announcement there with your snores, I think.
I sent out that was the vibe I sent. No, it could have been again. And I think after the mule deer incident, it just, nothing really ruffled my feathers. Have you ever been too tired to just care anymore?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's just like, I'm not really even worried about what may happen to me here and there. It's not bravery. It's just exhaustion.
Yeah, no.
Like,
and you hear that a lot. And even if people know that it's something that could be scary, you hear a lot that people just go, screw it. I'm going back to sleep. I'll deal with it in the morning.
Well, I mean, even if it had been a big mule deer, that would have been quite a sight to behold. Anything kind of sniffing out there. It wasn't just scratching on the tent. I mean, I literally heard breathing, but it wasn't anything that I think sounded too scary. But
no massive bear footprints outside the tent.
No, I'm afraid I'm just this is a letdown for your listeners. I just don't have the stories. I could lie and make stuff up, but no, those are my only two.
It rolled you up like a burrito and dragged you off into the woods, and you're still around to talk about it. I was able to get away by giving it some of my tobacco. Yeah, yes. Like, was that Albert Ostman? Ostman. Yeah. You have to take that stuff out there in case you have to barter with the Bigfoot.
I'd love to have some crazy stories like that, but
I like the Cryptid Cat story.
I love your but get your listeners, them motivated to get out and see nature and maybe something crazy too.
Well, that's not going to happen because we're all going to just still sit on our damn phones all day. We got to be addicted to Instagram and all this other stuff. And how many characters for Twitter is it now? 40, whatever it is. I hate Twitter the most, but yeah, it's unfortunate. I sure miss the woods. I know that. Oh, did you know that recently Washington State was named the best state to live? I think it's because of the Bigfoot. Yeah, I just heard that on Howard Stern this morning. Robin was naming off the top 5 states. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. I wonder what goes into that because I don't, that'd be interesting to know what.
Right.
It's probably median household income and all kinds of factors go into.
Or the guy that wrote the article he lives in Washington State. He's from Washington State, so there you go. It's probably maybe just as simple as that. I don't know. Very biased,
Well, I tell you, I come out annually to your state for a convention, and I've fallen in love with the Mojave.
Yes,
it is a beautiful place, and the first time out there since this trip to Zion, I was actually able to take my wife up. We flew into Vegas, had rented a car, and drove straight to Zion for the evening, and we ate in Springdale. Which isn't too far from Vegas. And then a couple years ago, was able to visit your beautiful Red Rock Canyon State Park. Mm-hmm.
That's a place that I always, if anyone's like, what is there to do in Vegas? I'm like, well, leave the Strip, first of all, and go to Red Rock. You have to go to Red Rock and see that whole mountain range. It's called the Basin and Range, and it goes north for very long ways, but it comes down here. And that's part of that mountain range. It's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous, and I don't think I definitely. I lived in Denver for a while, so I was used to seeing big mountains, but those mountains, Red Rock Canyon State Park, or however Red Rock, there in outside of Las Vegas, those mountains are a lot bigger than they look because as you get closer, you'll actually see a lot of climbers out there.
Yeah. The crazy climbers.
Those are some big walls out there, but beautiful, beautiful colors there for you guys right there outside of that crazy city that y'all call home. My goodness.
Yeah, I don't go down the Strip. Everybody goes, oh, you live in Vegas. Yeah. Oh, so you're on the Strip. No, that's not Vegas. I mean, that is Vegas, but Vegas is the whole valley. I live in Vegas, but it has zero to do with the Strip. So, yeah, in fact, I live on one of the edges of the valley, and I constantly see the Bell 407 flying out to Red Rock, and I'm like, oh, somebody else probably fell. There's constantly people falling out there. Well, the Free Solo guy lives here.
Alex Hannell.
He moved out here because of the Red Rock area, because it's some of the best climbing in the country. But I mean, bless his nutty heart. I mean, I would love to get him on the show sometime. I think it'd be fascinating to talk to him. But people go out there climbing all the time. Not me on those rocks. Nope.
Well,
not doing it.
One of his first big ascents. I think I may have heard this incorrectly. I think one of his first free solos on a big wall was in Zion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
they have the vertical spaces out there, a lot of them.
He's got the climbing of Zion close by. He's got the Utah climbing close by. He's got the course right outside there in Vegas, the Red Rock climbing that's so close by. But yeah, the Mojave is beautiful. Your neck of the woods is a little too far salt water for me. I like being a little closer to the big water.
Yeah, I think someday I'd love to end up in Florida. I love Florida.
Yeah. That's. I mean, it's a nice little luxury for us in the Southeast to be so close to the Gulf, or to the Atlantic, or to Charleston. It's all within a drive of Atlanta, so we are fortunate with that.
You just got to watch out for the whatever sea creatures might come up onto your boat. Like when Max Hawthorne told that story of his friend. I can't forget the body of water. I can't remember the body of water he said it was in. But, when he said the tentacle, just the one tentacle was damn near the size of the boat, I'm like, no, that's not cool at all. That is terrifying. I still hope that guy wants to come on one of these days. The guy that actually saw that. That would be amazing. I know that Max will eventually listen or somebody will go, hey, Max, Shannon was talking about you again. So I hope that guy wants to come on eventually. But the ocean is just as interesting and unexplored as space.
I was just going to say, you could have a whole different show just on sea stuff.
Oh, I know.
Like, people are finding stuff washed up on the shore all the time. If you just did any searches for crazy stuff washing up on shore, and this isn't just stuff that's like got loaded or dead. I mean, it's stuff that looks weird. You could tell it looked weird even when it was alive. Yeah. Like an anglerfish. That we always see with the light bulb on the end of its head. But when they open their jaws, that I could walk into it. That's the size of an anglerfish.
That's
people don't realize that they're like 6 feet tall from like the top of they grow to that size. Some are smaller, but they grow to be like that size.
Right. Yeah, it's terrifying. The ocean is terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't want to rock climb. And I don't know about, certain things that are under the water. I don't mind the water. I'll go in the water. But when you hear certain stories, it reminds you just how humble you should be when you're going into these wild places, including the ocean. So
I have spent some time on the ocean, outside of land, fishing and whatnot. And, I've seen a few things in my times out there. I would definitely not say I'm some, old salty mariner, but I've been on the water outside of land on a little, fishing boat with some buddies, and you'll see stuff out there that you just don't see anywhere else.
Yeah.
And you would think, well, what can you see in kind of this void of water and sky? But things see you, so things get interested and want to come by and take a peek. Like, sea turtle up the size of a coffee table just floats up and wants to see what's going on. Just something like that's really amazing. The only other crazy thing I've seen that I would say is scary, I haven't seen anything like with a kraken or a large tentacled beast, but we were pulling our fishing gear from a day of trolling, and we were packing it all in and going to run back from where we were in the Gulf Stream off West Palm. So where we were within sight of land, but we actually were still able to hit the Gulf Stream in about 2,000 feet of water. Just two big bull sharks, just kind of floated up by the side of seeing if we had any fish we had caught or fish they could steal from us. Because they like to hang around fishing boats. They see boats and there's something I doubt they would have attacked us if we jumped in, but it's still having these two fish about the size, the length of your boat under you makes you kind of just want to stay in the boat.
Well, yeah. Bull sharks too.
You can see their eyes. You can see their.
And they're just watching you guys.
Oh yeah, it's just right there. Because a lot of times people, fishermen, there's always food falling off of a fishing boat, whether it's when they're baiting hooks.
I wouldn't jump in with a bull shark. You couldn't pay me enough to jump in with a bull shark. Never happened.
People do it all the time.
Yeah, they're
all over that Discovery Channel swimming with sharks like they're puppy dogs.
I saw a woman. I think it was a female. She's in scuba gear. It looked like a woman to me. It was in darker water, and she and a great white shark that had to be 6-7 times her size, easily, maybe more. It looked like it had the belly of a massive whale. It's huge, and they're both just swimming
was that not the great white shark?
I think
that they just did pictures with.
That's unreal.
There was one that they were able to get close to because she had been feeding on a whale carcass.
Wow.
So she was full of food and just kind of in the area, just swimming around slowly, just waiting for her, I guess, food to digest so she could eat more.
I guess that's the time to be next to it then, huh?
When it's full.
Good God. Still, no. I don't know about that. I would maybe do a cage dive or something, but I'm not like that Manny guy that's gonna, come up and put it on its back and start giving it a massage like it's my best friend. I mean, I don't know. We've got to be limited.
Well, and people forget how, me. I mean, we as humans just don't understand scale sometimes when it comes to, again, it now gives, after seeing something crazy, my one crazy and just how it can happen and how nature can be and the potential for it to be there. You see something like a grizzly bear and you watch the Grizzly Man documentary where they show like what a normal person is. Like I think, what was his name? Treadwell?
I forget. Yeah, it was.
He has a video of him standing beside a tree that a bear had just been standing beside, scratching its back.
Right.
And then you go, oh, yeah, that entire grown man could go in its belly.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't realize how big things like grizzly bears and polar bears and sharks get.
Okay, well, the next time you're out at your uncle's and, you have to go handle some business and you see a Bigfoot, you know who to call, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate your time. I really do. I love the Cryptid Cat story. That's not boring at all. I think that's amazing. And the fact that it's a Jaguarundi. It's really like a tongue twister almost. You gotta spit it Jaguarundi. Yeah, you can get real fanciful with it, like Joe Dierte, No, that's really cool. And you're in that area where something like that and other cryptids, I think, definitely have a shot at really thriving out there. Not just surviving, but thriving. So, well, yeah, keep in touch. If you ever see anything else, I love that you shared your story with me. Thank you so much. And I know that Chip's story was kind of like maybe what prompted you to, because we've been in touch before. We've known of each other for quite a long time now. So thanks for being like, hey, I have something I can share with you.
Okay. Take care.
All right. You have a good night out there.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Nobody knows who that is, because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question: who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. So we don't believe literally in reincarnation, that after your funeral, you will suddenly become somebody different, living somewhere else. They will say reincarnation means this, that if you sitting here now are really convinced that you're the same person who walked in the door half an hour ago, you're being reincarnated. If you are liberated, you will understand that you're not. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There is only the present. That's the only real you that there is. The Zen master Dogen brings it this way. He said, spring does not become summer. First there is summer, and then there is spring.
kind of recitation
recitation of a history. A kind of 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 recitation of a history.